Hey everyone, I am Jen Walker-Wall from Work Wonders Careers. I am a career strategist here with another pep talk to help you and hopefully offer some actionable insight for professionals and job seekers so that you can move from overwhelm into action that's going to help you take your next steps. If you're not familiar with Work Wonders Careers, we help mission-driven professionals make moves that matter through career strategy, coaching, and resume writing. You can, of course, check out workwonderscoaching.com to learn more about what we do. And while I'm waiting for folks to join us live today, I want to welcome any replay viewers. If you're happening to catch us a little bit later, no problem at all. You are also welcome to drop comments. Hey there, Peter. And any questions you might have, I'll try to keep an eye on the replay so that if folks want to get questions answered, but they can't join us live, that they still get access to that. So while we're waiting for folks to join us, I just want to remind everyone that we have the Spring Accelerator. The registration is open. I'm so excited for the folks who are joining. There's going to be a really great group of people over in there. It was a really long, slow start to the new year. I think it was not the start to the new year many of us were hoping for. But in the last few weeks, people have gotten into such good patterns and routines and really good traction. So we've been celebrating a lot over there lately, and that feels very well deserved and is very exciting to see. And we're excited to welcome a new cohort of job seekers with us to hopefully get some traction in their own job search this spring. We will be kicking off the first week of May, and I will be saying a little bit more. Hey, Pam. Hey, Beth. Oh, good. So I'm starting to see familiar faces. I love it when everyone's here. We'll be kicking off the first week of May. You'll get weekly office hours with me to answer your questions. You'll get rapid reviews for feedback on the work that you're doing, plus our resources and community. So I'll say a little bit more about that. But if you're here, welcome. Please feel free to say hello and let me know where you're joining from today. I was really excited to talk about this topic because I think everyone wants to have a fast job search. And if you've come to any amount of these, like if you've ever heard me speak before about job searching, you know that speed is not a huge piece of what I consider to be like a strategic job search. I think that the time piece, the time we invest into our job search is actually really critical and important. And it has a reason. It's nice to give yourself a long runway and to search from a passive place rather than an urgent place. But I also know we're not all living in an ideal situation. So there's lots of reasons people need a job urgently. And so I want to give some tips today about, what to do if you're trying to turn up the sense of urgency and accelerate the process a little bit. I mean, you might be wanting to accelerate the process, even if you're not in a huge rush to get a new job, if you don't have that urgency, because let's be honest, a lot of us can kind of hang out in an indecisive place, not fully invested in the job search, but not fully happy in our current role and kind of be straddling those two worlds of having a job and being fine there and thinking about what else is possible. So there's all kinds of reasons you may want to, modify the speed or sense of urgency in your job search today. So this is probably the first time ever I've really spoken directly about what I think is going to help people move things forward quickly. Hi, Lucina. Hi, Terrence. Thanks for being here today. So let's dive into some of these things here. And before we do, let me just say also, you get to decide what your priorities are. So what you value, how urgent, how much you want to accelerate your job search and why. All of those reasons are totally up to you. And you get to decide, we all get to decide for ourselves sort of what the priorities are. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a job because you need an income, because you're trying to get your foot back into, the workforce, you're trying to minimize a gap. Those are all perfectly good reasons. And in fact, in the last year or so, over a year now, I've seen more people than ever sort of take what I would consider a bridge job so that they would have some stability for themselves with so much instability going on. And I think that's a really good, healthy choice for a lot of people to make. So we're here just to offer some quick tips to help you kind of think about how to turn up the volume, turn up the acceleration in your job search, and help you make some moves that you feel good about. Because even when we're moving with a sense of urgency or we're hitting the gas on the job search, it doesn't mean we have to leave the strategic piece behind. So for usual, feel free to drop your questions in the comments. I'll try to keep an eye. There is a little bit of a delay, so just keep that in mind. I'm probably not ignoring your comment. It just takes a little bit to get through. So the first thing that people can do to really help accelerate their job search process is probably the hardest one to implement here, because it's focus. Another way to say this would be like boundaries or priorities even, because people try, especially when there's a lot of stress and a big sense of urgency, to turn their job search into a numbers game. So there can be this feeling like, let me just get my application out everywhere. And I think that, especially for people with any significant work experience under their belt, is not helpful. People are often wildly underqualified or overqualified for roles, and they're not really taking the time that is required to kind of communicate their value for specific roles. They're just like hoping for the best by sending their resume or submitting their application everywhere. So using these steps, I'm just going to talk a little bit about like what I would do if I were urgently looking for a job. So for those of you who know, and I know there's some of you here who know this, like I spent my career before Work Wonders in higher education, and I still teach. So like if I were going to pivot, that would probably be where I would focus, not because that's where I want to be, but because that's where I have the bulk of my experience. So I would focus my time and energy on roles where I thought I could get traction quickly. So for me, I would probably look at like career development offices in a higher ed space, because that really would perfectly kind of capture what my experience has been and kind of the culminating piece here. So really focusing on roles where I have significant relevant experience, obvious, significant relevant experience, can help people get traction a little bit more quickly. It can be difficult, not impossible, but difficult to make a big transition in a short period of time. Of course, I've seen that happen, but I want you to just think a little bit about the level of alignment you might naturally have for some roles versus the kind that might, require more work on your part to convey your qualifications, or the kinds of roles where perhaps, you need the right role to come along. And that could be something where you're leveraging soft skills, or you need your network to work for you. And maybe that doesn't happen overnight either. So I think focusing on roles where you have a lot of similar transferable experience or obvious experience can be a great way to kind of double down. And that way you're not really looking to be overqualified or underqualified. You're really trying to leverage exactly where you have. So making some kind of lateral move could even be happy. If you're looking to explore a variety of roles, right? So maybe that wouldn't mean you would focus solely on higher ed career development office roles, but you're kind of curious about a few different things and you're willing to explore a few different things. Focus is still really important to help you accelerate, because honestly, we can kind of just do one thing at a time at this stage of the process. And so sometimes people feel like, oh no, I don't just want to focus on optimizing my resume or applying for this kind of job. I want to do A, B, and C here. So just start with A. Focus on A. Focus on doing one thing well, and then we can move on to the next piece. Whenever I'm working with clients on their resume and they're like, they're second guessing or doubting themselves or just not feeling super sure about the direction of their career, I always say, this work is going to pay off. Like, sure, there'll be some nuances and details in this resume that may change or shift, but the work you spend understanding your experience, optimizing it to be easy to read, and learning how to use something like the summary of qualifications is a good investment in your time and your job search and your career. So it really pays off in multiple ways to just have a clear goal, start in one place, and not try to take on the entire breadth of your job search in the very, very first move here. The second piece here is something that I think is really, really important and is why we need kind of to focus to begin with, which is really around elevating our communication or customizing our applications is really what we're talking about here. But communication is a huge, huge, huge part of the job search process. And this is where we spend so much time offering support and strategy to our clients, because like that's what we're doing here. We're helping job seekers communicate their experience and value to potential employers. So elevating your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your networking emails or pitches, or however you might be connecting with people, can really help you stand out in someone's inbox that's super crowded or in a field of many, many candidates. We spend so much time helping our clients come up with like the best language to use so that they can convey their impact at the highest level, reach out and follow up with contacts and folks they have relationships with without feeling awkward, and doing all of this concisely. It is an art. We do have some templates that we use, but everyone has their own personality and comfort zone. And so we really try to honor that. Like there really is a way for you to communicate in a way that feels good for you about pretty much anything that comes up in the job search process. So I want you to keep that in mind. As you can imagine, like I tend to be very, very direct. But a lot of our clients, really feel a little bit more timid about being that direct. So we'll help them find some language that really captures who they are, what they're doing, what they want, and what they need, and that they feel good using. Because if you don't feel good about the language that you're using, talking about yourself or asking for things, you're not going to use it. That's what I've learned here in 7 years of doing this. So that's what I really want you to think about is when you focus your job search, you can take the time to elevate the way you are communicating your value and communicating your needs to people in your network. And sometimes that elevation, that clarity, that conciseness can make all the difference in the world when it comes to your application being reviewed. It can be really hard for people to marry their strengths with the needs of potential employers that are being shared. So helping people do that is like really our sweet spot, to be honest. So if you have any questions about that, definitely let me know. But here's the piece that really comes to mind for me, where people, our clients really generate like a lot more confidence in putting themselves out there, is that we review their work and we review the resume. So like when people send me their resume, or if you've ever sent me your resume, you know that like I think the best way to evaluate a resume is by looking at the job that you're submitting it for. And this helps us really help you deliver a level of alignment that most people don't realize is A, possible, or B, preferable. So we really want to help you understand how to identify other people's needs. And the big hint here is that, paying attention to the qualifications, what employers are asking for, and getting some feedback and really working to make sure that you're speaking to that level of alignment there. All right, the other piece here, another extremely unglamorous but very effective piece, is consistency. Doing the same things or similar things over and over again is how we get a new job. It is how we generate interviews for people. So it can feel very unglamorous, but it is part of the process that's very effective for many of our clients. Unfortunately, wanting a new job doesn't get us a new job, right? So one of the things that consistency really helps us with is assessing people's job search process. So assessing the strategy you're implementing, assessing if your resume is working for you. I never know which applications my client submits they're going to get a call back on. And so when we give ourselves permission to kind of consistently apply for jobs, then not only do we have more opportunities for conversations and interviews and all of that, like we also have data to reflect on. Did you enjoy yourself with these interviews? Were you getting interviews? Are you consistently applying for jobs? Which ones? Where are you getting the most traction in your search? So I think consistency is very important. However, I also know that it's very elusive. So let me say this, because all of these steps so far kind of connect to one another. Not sure if you're following that. But consistency isn't just about having a routine. Having a routine is part of it, right? Like having some kind of consistent commitment to your job search and dedicated time each week or something like that every day for some people. That's key. I mean, there's no getting around that sort of routine, but we can really take the pressure off that routine and the time required over the span of your job search if we help you prepare well for the job search. That's really like what I think a lot of people are coming to the accelerator for, is to make sure that they have the right assets, like that they have a strong resume, that they know how to use their resume, modify it for different kinds of jobs, maybe have a template or two to reduce the amount of customizing they might need to do down the line. That's an asset for your job search. It means that your routine and the time required over the span of your search will be so much easier because you won't be spending, every night or every weekly block kind of writing and editing and revising your resume. Like you can really just edit and execute. You'll be kind of several steps ahead and you'll have like really clear goals and assets, resumes, templates that you can use to move the process along much more quickly. When we teach people how to edit and optimize their resume so that it speaks to other people's needs, don't get me wrong, like it does require some time up front, but the angle, the way we sell this to our clients and the way I'm trying to sell it to you is that it's time well spent. That upfront time in your job search helps you get clear about what kind of roles you want to focus on, clear about like speaking to other people's needs and delivering your value, and to do that concisely. And so when you learn to do that, even though it requires a few rounds up front, and I usually find, just to be honest, like probably 3 or 4 applications, and people aren't even usually asking for my feedback anymore. Like they might check in about a job they get really excited about, but usually within 3 to 4 rounds of like setting up the summary of qualification, optimizing their bullet points, people feel pretty comfortable doing this themselves. So consistency is not only important just for generating some traction, but it's how we assess what's going on. So if you have been job searching for a while and you've been consistent in getting applications out, or if you've been consistent in doing some networking and outreach, or if you've been consistent in even career exploration and informational interviews, every 6 to 8 weeks is a good time to kind of check in and ask yourself, what's working, what's not working, what are you learning? And this is especially important for exploratory people, but it's also important for people who are interviewing. Are you generating opportunities you're excited about? Are you more excited about the opportunities after you interview, or are you less excited? Where can you double down to be more successful? All of these are questions that are best answered if you can do things consistently, and also, this is key, keep track of what you're doing consistently. So if anyone has any questions about what I'm sharing, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions about your job search. I just have one step left. It's a quick pep talk today. So let me know your questions now if you have any thoughts or comments on the process so far. For sure, a lot of you have heard me say this before, but it's going to be written on my gravestone, which is that the most important action you can take in a job search is interaction. What I see from my vantage point as a career coach and strategist and someone who works with job seekers like all day, every day, is that people keep a lot in their head. And there's a lot that goes in to people's thoughts and preparation around the job search. There are fears, there are hopes, there are concerns, there are obstacles, and that's just like the internal stuff. Never mind like what's going on in the world around us and how that helps us or not make decisions. And so the reason I remind people all the time that interaction is the most important component of the job search is because people are so likely to stay in their heads. They don't start their search because they have questions that they're trying to kind of figure out themselves, and they end up confused and frustrated and disappointed and stuck and not sure why. And what I realize a lot of times when I get on a consult call with people, like people do have answers, but they're often trying to ask questions where they just haven't given themselves an opportunity to like take the next step, which would help give them the answer. Sometimes the questions we get more clarity from taking action than from like waiting for like a total lightning bolt moment. So working on your resume, looking at job postings, those can all be really important things to do. But this other piece here that I'm getting at is about connection and having support and encouragement and empathy and networking and accountability for your career and job search process. You deserve these things for your career, not just for your job search, over the course of your job search. I think for so many people are leaving opportunities leaving work opportunities, leaving jobs, or considering leaving jobs because they don't have support or encouragement, empathy, networking, and accountability. And so my working theory about job searches is that we should try to create a job search process that feels as good as we want our next opportunity to feel, to start behaving like we want to behave, to start taking that strategic approach and being creative and being brave. And also for many of us, like working in collaboration with people. The time it takes to develop great professional relationships with colleagues and mentors, like it takes time. Like, it's an investment. I'm not going to minimize that. And it's not the fastest way to get a new job. So this isn't connection because there's some kind of transaction that's out there imminently ready to provide you for a job if you can just find the right person. But relationships are really levers you can pull throughout your career, including in the short term, to help provide introductions, to help share knowledge, to help cheer you on. Twice a month, we have our group program that meets we do community-wide calls. And a lot of times people do bring questions, but sometimes people just show up because they want to share an update, they want to share a win, they want to provide support to other people, and they just want to renew their energy and optimism for the process. So when I say you need connections and relationships, I'm not saying you need, someone who's going to just hand you a job. That's not the expectation. I'm saying something needs to fill the tank. And for a lot of our clients, having really positive relationships that they generate along the way, whether through our community or other work that they're doing, is something that helps refuel the tank, that I think is so, so, so important. I love this, Pam. Do you like this? I have started saying this. I made it up myself, but I think it's really important that we not treat the job search process like it's not part of our career, right? Like, we kind of resent the job search process, like it prevents us from having our career. But when we learn to do the job search process well, focus, set boundaries, communicate what we want clearly, confidently, and concisely, and build relationships, we have all kinds of things that happen for us in our careers that are really positive. We have a deep network that we can go to for support and insight. And yes, even new jobs. We have different kinds of conversations at work. And so in some ways, your job search is like the ideal place to practice being the professional that you want to be, but maybe feel too timid or too scared to do in the workplace. So this is something we spend so much time talking about in the community, because I think everyone gets to show up and be the eager, strategic thinker, creative problem solver, collaborative person in a community environment, even if they don't have that experience as like an employee right now. Thank you, Brenda. That is so good to hear. That's what we're here for. Monica has a question. Should you add to your resume consulting work that you have been doing to fill the gap, or does this weaken your resume and your professional level? So let me just say a couple of things. One, almost everyone has a gap if you are lucky to work long enough. I don't know if lucky is the right word, but almost everyone has a gap at some point or another. So I really think we should normalize gaps. And I just say that so that everyone listening knows that I think we're all given a lot of insight into avoid having a gap. But, our whole career is not, our whole life isn't about our career, and life sometimes takes precedence. So the way I would address this is, is the consulting work relevant to the jobs that you're applying for? And does it help you? It really would depend how relevant the consulting work is, how big the gap is, how much substance it provides. I never want people to feel like they have to over-explain their absence from the workforce, because I do think gaps are normal. That's why I led with that piece. On the other hand, if you are working and you do have things to talk about and discuss, then that is probably worth sharing, regardless of whether it fills the gap or not. I think, if you were to do this on the side, for example, and you worked full time and this was like a side hustle, that could probably be something that I think is really important to share. But I don't ever want people to feel like they have to over-explain a gap. Consulting work and freelance and all kinds of things can help, but gaps are normal. And if it feels relevant, then I would definitely share the most relevant pieces. Let me just share, because Monica, I don't know what kind of work you do, and I'm not sure what kind of work other people here today might do. But sometimes people who do consulting work will focus on, the number of clients or the name of the clients, or they'll share information that isn't particularly helpful. So I would think about the consulting work that is most helpful for your potential employers, like the positioning of that. So let me give you an example, because I was using myself earlier. You're welcome, Janet. Yeah, I think that's really important. So earlier I was saying, so if I was going to focus on something I felt really well qualified for, I would focus on like career development offices and higher education. So instead of listing, I would list myself as a career strategist and founder. And instead of talking about all of the things I do to run a small business, right? Like managing books, sending marketing emails, that kind of stuff, I would focus specifically on the career work that I do with my clients. I would curate those bullet points on my resume to be 100% career development focused versus anything that's like, which is actually most of running a small business. I don't know if anyone here has a small business, but most of what you do is like not really client work per se, but is a lot of like marketing or bookkeeping or partnership work, right? So that's how I would frame and position it. So just think about, is this relevant? Is it helpful? And how can I highlight the most relevant aspects of this? And of course, gaps are normal. All right. I'm just going to, Lucina, you're so nice. I love it when you come here and say such positive things. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So let me know. This will be the final call for any questions, related to accelerating your job search. We talked about getting super clear so that you can spend your time and energy well. Like specificity is so helpful when you're trying to use your time wisely in the job search. So give yourself permission to focus, get super clear on what you can do first, and know that it will most likely lay the groundwork for other important pieces in your job search as well. Elevate your communication. Learn how to use your resume. Learn how to write short, concise, but clear and effective networking emails, because these help you create assets that move your career along. And they also help you be more consistent, which is the third piece of this. Janet's asked a really good question. Let me put this up. So I'll come to this question in just a second. Janet, we want to be consistent so we can figure out what's working, give ourselves some information, and of course, give ourselves opportunities to, have interviews and learn more about the roles that we're curious about. And then, of course, there's the relational piece and making sure we're getting the support we need, the encouragement. It's not just about expertise and strategy. Having encouragement is like so huge. It's its own form of accountability that I think is really motivational. So remember, we're trying to fill up the tank and not just drain the tank with all this job search work. Why do some people act like gaps are an issue? Janet, this is a really good question. And, I'm not sure who you're referring to. I do think that it depends. Some gaps are like a month and some are like many years. And so there's assumptions that are made about what people may or may not be able to do. I tend to think recruiters get a little bit of a bad rap that they may not deserve because, they're trying to hire someone into the role and they are trying to make assessments about a large volume of candidates typically, and certainly now, very, very quickly. So they can leap to some wrong conclusions. They may not have time to like fully suss out, what people may have been doing for the gap or, what their experience was prior that may be super helpful and beneficial. So what I think is really important is like being able to kind of confidently speak to and concisely, again, not over explaining, concisely articulate why you've had some kind of a pause or break, depending on the length of time, and focus on your transferable skills and relevant experience when you can. I think being able to speak to relevant skills. So if you're in a technical area or there's tools, apps, software, I've had a lot of clients with gaps invest some time in making sure that, they knew, how to use some of these software, like Asana or Jira or things like that. So pay attention to the technical skills that are required, because oftentimes if you can speak to that, I think that's really helpful. LinkedIn just rolled out a new feature that lets you say like stay-at-home parent, I think. So I'm hoping that, we can kind of normalize, like people have to take care of each other. They travel, they do things other than work. And I don't think it makes them like less ambitious or less talented or less valuable. But, it can be hard when you're trying to make assumptions quickly about people to like ascertain what that was all about. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. So if you'll all allow me, I would love to just say a little bit more about the Spring Accelerator. We've known for a while that the strategy part of the job search is a really big deal, but it's not the only deal. The execution is what's key. And that's why, the group program, Work Wonders & Co. and the Spring Job Search Accelerator are things that we're just super excited about, because coming together to do this work, literally together sometimes, because we do group co-working, can be a real game changer. So if you are someone, if you're just cruising along and you're getting lots of interviews and things are going smoothly and you're like, I'm not sure I need help, that's totally fine. This might not be a good match for you. But if you are feeling stalled out in your search, like unmotivated or unfocused, or if you're having trouble getting traction, like maybe you are being consistent, but you're not getting the kinds of results, or you just haven't started yet. If your job search is in here, then it probably hasn't started fully. And I would love to invite you to consider joining us. Please consider yourself invited. It's going to start the first week of May. And every week we're going to do a live office hours call where you can pretty much ask me anything about your job search, your resume, whatever concerns you might have. So you'll have time for feedback. You'll have a chance to submit your work and the job you're applying for, so we can help you optimize your resume for the roles that you want to apply for and learn how to use your resume effectively in this process. You'll also be able to, we have co-working every single week, so you'll be able to do that virtually with me, our team, and our community, so that you have time to actually execute. You can make a date with yourself to actually do the job search part, which for many people can be the trickiest part. And you'll also get access to our community channel, where we have some fantastic people, many of whom are job seekers and eager to connect. So there's kind of like some built-in networking that happens automatically when you do this with other people. That's really, really nice. And people are, over there, and they meet up and do their own co-working outside of our official hours. They do mock interviews with one another. It's a really generous, thoughtful, smart, lovely group of people. And we would love to have you join us. So I want you just to think, like, if 4 weeks of this could help you transform your approach, then you may be a great person to consider being in the program and joining us. If you join before the 27th, I'm also doing resume reviews for those people so that they can get some feedback as soon as they sign up. And I will be inviting you to a special office hour call. So it'll be a very small group of people who register early who will be eligible for that before we officially kick off. So if you're interested in joining us, you can go over to workwonderscoaching.com. You can link right to the Spring Job Search registration page and take a look at that and see if it feels like a good fit and if you'd like to join us. And you can also, if you have questions or you have concerns, you are also welcome to send me a DM. This is a good question. With business coming back to the new normal, do you feel generally there is a rush of positions to fill? So I'm not going to lie, this winter was the hardest season of job searching I've seen. And it didn't just have to, like, people got jobs over the winter. But we've seen so many people get traction in the last few weeks. So I would say from like the last week of March to now, many people have gotten interviews and many people have gotten jobs. That's been really, really nice to see. I don't know how generalizable that is. I do think, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if there's any labor market data that supports that, but I can certainly say for our group, that's what I have seen. For a change, I can positively say that I hit a wall. That's great. I mean, so if you're finding that there's lots of opportunities and you're maxing them out, I certainly have heard that from lots of clients right now. All right. So if you have any other questions and you want to chat, feel free to, you can drop your questions here. If you're watching the replay, feel free to drop your questions here. But if you have questions about the Spring Job Search Accelerator, feel free to visit our website, workwonderscoaching.com, or send me a DM here if you'd like questions or need me to send you a link. Otherwise, I hope you all have a really good rest of your week. Thank you so much for being here and for your trust and for your kind words and good questions. And I will talk to you all soon. Take care.